Hello, my name is Amul Patel. I'm in Los Angeles. You're watching the Smoking Hot Coffee Show, where we talk to startup founders about their startups, and I'm joined with.
Hey guys, I'm Jeff Pelton down here in San Diego.
And so today we've got another amazing interview with Jordan Menzel from CrowdHall.com. He's doing some really exciting, innovative things with, forum software, with being able to put many people together. Jeff, tell us more about CrowdHall.
Yeah, so CrowdHall is sort of as we would look at it as developers, as a forum software improved, right? So for CrowdHall, town hall type forums, like FORUM, software where people can come and converse, have conversations, discussions, focused highly on question and answer. And so this allows like a one-to-many or a many-to-many conversation where the audience can curate the questions and the answers and really help drive the discussion in a way where it all lives in one place and you can point to it and come back to it later.
All right, so Jordan tells us a little bit more about how he basically was able to use his background as and being in politics and knowing the secretary and being able to leverage that whole space to get introductions to other politicians that would use this software for their campaigns and for their outreach with their constituents. Tell us a little bit, Jeff. What exactly? How is this different from a normal forum software?
Well, it's really focused on this use case, like the one-to-many. It's really curated, focused on that bit of it. It's great on my screen here. I'm looking at the categories. They kind of, again, to the curation bit. I think as a user, you can subscribe to this stuff so you can start seeing other crowd halls that might be interesting to you. As a brand, as an identity, this is a great way to maintain your content and control it rather than like hopping onto all the other some other content sites are doing things like this, like we talked about Reddit's Ask Me Anything sort of format. That's,
Right.
really popular, but you don't really have a lot of control, and it's sort of haphazardly thrown together. And so something like
Gotcha.
this is a lot better for you, I think, as a brand or an identity.
And one of the key differentiators that he mentions is that you're able to use this technology on the politician's side or the entertainment or the athlete or the movie star or whatever, and so it ends up being sort of this sophisticated forum discussion or this crowd hall type forum on your site and embedded within the site. And as you can see from the screen here, it looks really beautifully designed. And I have to say, they're kicking ass in my opinion. Forums have been around forever and ever and ever. It's one of the key base technologies on the internet. So anybody that innovates in the space and starts to gain some traction, I think, is going to do very well.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot of the big players in this space before, and our frustration with a lot of the crappy forum software out there when you're
Oh
looking for key
yes.
questions and answers that you want
Oh,
solved. And so
absolutely.
I think this approach with the community engagement, like the politics and your local government, bringing that angle in, I think, is a great way to differentiate themselves and really focus on that specific use case. A lot of what we learned in this interview was networking is everything. A lot
Yeah.
of the progress they made have been because of partnerships and connections that they had through friends of a friend or
Right.
relationships that they were able to lean on, right?
Yeah, there's no
We're-
question in this day and age of the phone and the email, face-to-face communication, leveraging people that you already know
mhm.
in whatever space that you happen to be in, is vital for any startup founder, especially for non-technical startup
Hmm.
founders. And he's a non-technical startup founder. Him and his other partner, when they first started this, it's really hard to get a programmer or some other developers on board. He talks about how their first CTO helped build them the early version, and even though he wasn't able to stay on, that early version and some of the traction they got there was able to convince the second developer to come on board, and my goodness, they've come so far in such a small period of time. He talks a lot about how, as a non-technical founder, what you've got to do to try to get some traction in whatever space you're trying to do. So,
Yeah, it's great to see
um,
these guys working it, and they're also headed down to Las Vegas for the tech scene that's
yep.
popping up downtown there. So it's great to chat with him about that, and we've already talked about it several times. So we're anxious to go check it out ourselves in person.
Yeah, yeah. So the Vegas scene is definitely growing, and he talks about how they moved from their incubator in Cincinnati down to Las Vegas. Talks a little bit about how that happened, and in general, I think for startup founders, specifically non-technical founders, I think you'll find this this interview very, very interesting. So please subscribe to our show. You've got the YouTube subscribe link right there. If you're looking at this on YouTube, we're also on iTunes. Please subscribe via iTunes and share amongst your friends and family. We count on
absolutely.
your,
Without you guys hitting that button, we wouldn't keep doing this. So we really appreciate you guys going and leaving a comment, leaving a rating in iTunes, and please tell your friends. We really do appreciate it. Hopefully you find something of value and interesting in here that you learned. It would be great if you could just do us a favor and pass that along to someone else who might also learn from it.
Tell us, Jordan, a little bit about your background. I know you're from the politics area, and the germ of the idea, some of the start, and all that.
Yeah, so my background is very, very different than the startup space in general and the tech startup space in specific. I have a background in state politics, international development. Before getting involved with CrowdHall, I was actually at Georgetown University in a graduate program in the School of Foreign Service, so fundamentally different way of thinking, different community. And I was working as a teaching assistant for former Secretary Madeleine Albright, so going a totally different trajectory. And the kind of early roots of CrowdHall came from, while I was in that space, we'd watched a lot of the technological tools involvement in a lot of different social change, whether it was watching Arab Spring, while I was in school, participating in watching Occupy Wall Street, and seeing that while social media was really effective at bringing people together around causes or issues, hadn't really gone too far to solve some of the problems dealing with group conversation or group deliberation.
Okay.
And so I was kind of brainstorming on a couple ideas, and a friend told me to reach out to a good friend of mine who's actually my partner from the beginning. His name is Austin Hackett.
Okay.
And it turned out about a year ago, he had tried to really kind of explore some early ideas oriented around kind of group Q&As. And while he gave it a shot, he was actually in Columbia University's med school at the time, so even far more removed than I was.
Right.
Yeah. And it didn't get too much traction, and so we got together over a weekend, really combined our ideas, and came up with CrowdHall in a weekend, got our URLs together. And from there, I actually rolled the idea into a business plan competition at Georgetown University. Okay. Got some MBA students to work through financials, teach us as two non-technical co-founders a little bit about how we could actually recruit the right team and resources. We won some money, attracted a really good CTO named Nick Wintage from a great startup in the Silicon Valley area.
Okay.
And he came on board. We did an early risky demo with the State Department and USAID.
Whoa!
That went really well. We had a couple
did that Senator Albright was that the connect there? Am I hearing that?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of called upon all my connections, and we won a contract with no product other than a URL and a Tumblr page I had made.
I love it.
And we got the contract to essentially do an early application of what it is that we do. We had Mandy Moore, 5 heads of state, everyone set up to use the product, and we rallied our resources and had a really, really great experience.
Listen, I have to tell you, Jordan, the tools for politicians from the state to the local community to the Senate, to all levels is still new, and if you can get in there and become one of the key, one of the tools ecosystem, for all these politicians to garner support, there is a very profitable runway there for you. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah. So I mean, so we did this early application. We initially built our product thinking about its applications in the public sector space, which just brief orientation. We do audience.
Tell us about the PowerPoint. Tell us about the presentation you gave and what product you were pitching.
Yeah, so we were pitching.
Process went.
Yeah, big picture stuff is we were pitching, hey, whether you're a politician, an organization, a company, an athlete, a celebrity, anyone with an audience.
Everyone, yeah.
If you want to bring that audience together for a focused conversation where people can submit, at its bare minimum, submit questions, vote on their favorites, and allow you to sort that by category, pull out the key ones, and provide responses that can be engaging, that reach the maximum number of people. This is a venue where you can do that without having to go into detail about the limitations of forcing that experience on something like Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, etc.
Yeah, why isn't this possible today?
Yeah, so it is possible today. People force this experience on all sorts of platforms, but it isn't optimized today. People are
like Emil and I have a long-running conversation about how awful forum software tends to be on the web today, which I think is where you guys are getting at with the software solution.
Yes.
Yeah, so we just, we noticed, hey, people are trying to do Reddit AMAs, they're having Twitter chats, and when I spoke with Senate offices or anyone, that even out of the political space, they said it's a nightmare. You can't follow it, and more than anything, that whole experience doesn't capture the content, doesn't make it searchable, shareable, or socially integrated. And so we kind of pitched that product. We did an early application kind of in an event style space where they say, cool, let's source and organize content for panels, which was a great application. But we then kind of moved away from that, got accepted into the Brandery, and as a team went down and participated in the Brandery, which is a tech incubator. We had a phenomenal experience there. Built an early product that is very similar to what you'll see now on the site, and have been, we've done about 4 months of kind of beta testing, and just about a month ago, opened up our newer product, and are now slowly phasing in a lot of the features and products that we have that are primarily the first market we're looking at is certainly in the public space, which kind of includes your elected officials, senators, congressmen, all the way down to school districts. But we actually divide our markets into 3 segments. One's the public space. The other one is kind of interesting people, which is really entertainment, celebrities, academics, athletes. And then the other category is companies and organizations. And these are people who can use our product internally and externally. And so when you asked about, hey, why are we kind of looking at the political space, we said, as all startup, one of the earliest things we learned is if you got a lot of markets, you got to pick one and really nail it, because each market has their own sales channels, distribution plans, networks, etc.
Gotta focus.
Right. And so as a startup, we said, well, okay, we have 3 people. Which market is the most efficient? So where do we have a network already? And that was political. And we also said, which market can require one person to be in a physical location but reach all our clients? And that's Washington, D.C., really efficient. We couldn't find, companies aren't in one location, bloggers, authors, they're all fragmented. But politicians, I walk down the Senate aisle and we pitch our product all in an afternoon to 5 or 6, 7 clients. And so it's really efficient. And we also knew
Wait a second, Jordan. You're saying you're able to walk down and pitch some of these senators or the key senator aides and get face to face with these people?
Yeah, it's actually the only way. So kind of how what we learned is, so first in the political space, but this is the same introducing a new product in general, is you got to have some networks that make some introductions, right? Because these people are getting pitched products all day, every day, and they're not responding to thousands of emails. And so you get the introduction, you get the meeting, you pitch a product, you get one case study on the pipeline, right? Once we got our first senator or congressman, it was fantastic. Because then once we had that, we used them to give us introductions, and we built a whole pipeline of kind of people that generally had heard about us, respected our reputation, and the distribution became much more efficient.
I love this. I love this, Jordan. I love this. All right, so did Senator Albright here help with the first case study and then kind of work your way that way?
So Secretary Albright, was a great mentor, a great advisor, very, very helpful at helping us have the right introductions to the right people. But actually, some of our first help came from the Brandery. They have a lot of connections in the political space. That's one reason why we went with the Brandery.
Wow.
And so we had a couple early pilots and relationships built with some people on the Romney-Ryan campaign, which was really exciting. And so you'll notice a couple of our early political town halls have come in from the political side, from the Republican Party. And some of those are great connections that were left over from that early outreach. Now we since have done a number of town halls with people from different parties, and we also do a lot of kind of crowdsourced Q&As from people who are not in the political space. And we're beginning to now learn what that process looks like. Sort
of neutral parties can come in?
Oh yeah, anyone
to
can.
run a Crown Hall between the two parties?
Yeah, anyone can our product works. Anyone goes in, you open a free public venue, and you invite your audience. And so they source and prioritize questions. And so if you're an author doing a book release, if you're a company and the CEOs engaging consumers, and on our product, anyone can do public audience-moderated Q&As for free. You can also do private Q&As for internal audiences that have an invite code. So this is like within organizations, academic programs, school districts, where the conversation is a little bit more intimate. The participation, you want to be a little bit more exclusive and focused. And then you can embed the entire town hall on an existing website.
So really briefly here, what exactly is the technology? Is the technology one-to-many video conferencing? If so, how many streams, or is it all chat? Or
yeah, so what we saw is we said, for example, we're doing a Google Hangout, right? This is kind of a one-to-many communication. Twitter's one-to-many. Facebook is one-to-many. And what we really noticed is there aren't a lot of many-to-one applications for these types of conversations. And so what we said is let's create a venue where anyone can open up a public town hall with one host or multiple hosts, invite an audience, let that audience submit questions, ideas, concerns, complaints, peer vote on that content, and moderate it. And then instead of giving a live video stream or instead of doing a telephone town hall, why don't they give answers the way people are consuming content, which is addressing one at a time and letting people share those off. So people can actually, at their leisure, provide an answer to the top questions. That answer can be video, text, or photo. And then people, instead of sitting down and watching a recap of a 45-minute Google Hangout, they can actually just read the questions and answers and the comments that are relevant to the topics that they're interested in.
Jeff, this sounds very cool, Jeff.
Yeah, this is very cool. It breaks it down into sort of asynchronous, like at your own pace, while you reap all the benefits instead of trying to force it into a real-time event. Like I think Reddit's Ask Me Anything, those pop up every once in a while. It's like, they'll get some really popular figure on there, but you go through it and like they only answer like 4 good questions or something, and they put some emphasis, I think, on having the person there live and proof that they're doing it, but that probably has a lot of drawbacks. Trying to force it into like a 2-hour time period, you don't even get a video out of it. You just get a bunch of text responses. So I see where you guys are taking the best of that, but also, giving the host the advantage of, doing it at their leisure as well.
Yeah, and we do a couple other things that we think make the experience just a lot more better. We add topics to really keep it focused.
Yeah, I see that across the top of your pages here, like for
so you can
Senator
click
Sherrod
those
Brown,
and it'll
anything, job, Social Security, Medicare, manufacturing, trade.
And
jump right into what's interesting to you.
And what's great is, we also make it easy. So if you click on a question, you can comment on it. People can moderate those. But then that whole experience you're looking at, if you're participating in it, you can get an email notification when an answer is given. So you actually don't have to be staying there present. You can come back to that when it's convenient for you. But then this whole experience can actually be embedded on an existing website. So when you look at Sherrod Brown's town hall, or if you go to Senator Boozman, which was another very, very active one, that whole experience could take place on his website. And so this gives an example of where some of our revenue comes from, which is really the embedding of the town hall experience. And so picture a brand, a large consumer brand, let's say something like CoverGirl. They would want to embed a town hall between one of their spokespeople, maybe someone like Carrie Underwood or something. And Carrie Underwood would host a Q&A, all taking place on CoverGirl's website. And so rather than having that take place on Twitter, Facebook, it's taking place on an existing brand equity. And so that's a really large value proposition to kind of white label that town hall experience.
Where, if this content get indexed, what is it all indexed on the CrowdHall URL? Are the links? Is the content pointing towards the actual embed site? Jordan, did we lose him?
Might have lost Jordan on my end.
He is frozen. Please bear with us, internet.
I have to pause.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pause.
Crossing my fingers for.
Okay, and we're back. All right, so Jordan, really briefly here, this is clearly another innovation in the very stale forum space, in my opinion. So I love the fact that you guys are innovating in this area. I love the fact that you're also focusing on political area, which is your background. So tell us again, give us some more examples. I was before we lost you. Actually, the question I had was from an SEO standpoint. All this data that's being collected, all this information that's being categorized and
We were talking about embedding it on other websites. Does that help you with SEO and that sort of thing?
Does that help you, or does that help the actual person that embeds? Where does that content get indexed? How does the link?
So it's actually all our content.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, it really drives traffic to the source of that content, and that's CrowdHall.
Okay.
And so a lot of people will town halls exist. They can be open or closed for however long you want. So they can be open for an hour, a week, ongoing. Okay. And so a lot of people aren't interested in having the town hall exist forever on its site.
Okay.
And so they'll feature it on their site so that people can wander in and then get familiar with their site. But ultimately, if you follow a link, if it's shared on Facebook or Twitter, which right now if you share content on Twitter, we've got expandable content, so it'll drop down summary and have kind of the question title, a video answer if they've given it. If you follow those links,
telling our audience about.
Exactly. Yeah. So we've worked with them to secure that.
Great.
So so if you follow that content, it'll take you back to CrowdHall. And as an example of how effective it is to host these experiences that generate really good search engine optimization is we did one early on with the winner of ABC's Bachelorette.
Wow, that's a big win, man.
It was a fun one. So we did it about 3 days before the final episode, and we in about little under 3 hours handled over 100,000 hits from almost 10,000 unique visitors who on average spent 13 minutes on the site engaging in that content.
Wow.
And if you Googled the winner at that time of ABC's Bachelorette for that almost that whole weekend, you'd Google his name, and the second search feed, the second result was actually his town hall.
Oh, beautiful.
And so
wow.
So we noticed that we still get traffic.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is so awesome. Let me dive into this one a little bit. So, was that a Brandery connection? Do they have some guys at ABC?
No.
Did you come out to LA? Like, how did this happen?
No. So both my partner and I are from Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah.
Okay.
And by sheer luck, you'll find everyone here in the startup space. It's always a combination of a good network, but at the end of the day, it's like, dude, I went to high school with that guy. Or, you know what, like, we were all friends. We were all friends since we were, like, teenagers. His name is Jeff. So we were friends with Jeff. We reached out to Jeff. The minute we caught wind, he was doing The Bachelorette, and we said, hey, listen, put this on your radar. If you go all the way, this would be awesome. We actually even helped him set up his Twitter account before he had 300,000 followers, just kind of saying, hey, put this on your radar. But at that time, we were still working on a product, and so we got ready for it. He ultimately won, and so we reached out, and they were great, and so we worked with them and said, hey, let's do it.
So cool. What are the odds, bro? What are the odds?
Oh man, those. So here are the odds. I'll give you the odds. The odds are pretty good because the winner, or maybe not the winner, I don't know, but one of the final candidates of ABC's Bachelorette this time around is another Mormon dude who we're friends with from Utah.
That's awesome. Wow.
So we're working with him right now to see if we can do a similar thing again.
That's cool,
so,
man.
Keep it going.
Salt Lake, man, the home of the Bachelors.
Apparently.
That's so cool.
Very,
all right. Wow.
Cool.
So this really helped get you guys a lot of visibility. Have you been able to leverage this visibility? Are you getting more people trying out the platform? Tell us more.
Yeah. So right now we did those. For example, we actually rebuilt, as a startup, we've rebuilt our site probably 3 times.
Okay.
Fundamentally from the ground up, because each time you do it, you make assumptions, you test them, you learn, you pivot.
Yeah.
And we, one of the early things that we learned, I think, was, that I would say is, we did a lot of thinking on features that we might be relevant, and they're all great, but maybe not core. And so we did a lot of time building up features that we didn't need up front. And then we learned key lessons, which required a lot of fundamental back-end rebuilding.
Yeah.
So lost a little time there. So we rebuilt our new site now, and now we're doing a much different strategy that's a little bit more methodical in that we're curating all public town halls. So they reach out to us. We put them on a calendar. We feature 1 or 2 a week.
Okay.
We're piloting out the private products that we will sell, like making private town halls and making embeddable town halls.
Okay.
And to really nail down the price point, create good experiences.
Okay.
And then in the next about 8 weeks, we'll open it up and let anyone host a Q&A.
Okay.
Right now, if you want to host one, you contact us. We see if it's a right fit, and we work with you. And so that's kind of the process we're on right now.
So talk to me really briefly. Are you guys funded? Or are you where are you at? Your burn rate? Are you making any money? What's your runway looking like?
Right. So we are. So we actually just last week closed our what we would consider kind of our second. Everyone has all these funny descriptive names for different rounds of funding now.
Okay.
We did an early seed round when we were accepted into the Brandery, including the Brandery, just about $100,000 to give us some good runway.
Okay.
We then just closed another convertible debt, what we would consider our second seed round, I guess.
Gotcha.
Of just about up to $700,000.
Oh, yes!
We're excited to have that done.
Oh, $700K, man! Wow, that's
a big
fantastic.
seed round,
Yeah, so that gives us. So that was led by the Las Vegas Tech Fund, and
Las Vegas.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm sure you guys are familiar a little bit with
Tony
Shea's
yeah. We
downtown
like what
project.
Zappos is
I was
doing
just
there.
reading a great article about it this morning.
Yeah. So we're part of the downtown project.
Great.
We all just moved down there a month ago.
Oh, so you're in Vegas right now?
So right now I'm actually in Salt Lake City.
Oh, okay.
But I was just down there last week. So.
Okay. Very cool.
So
we're gonna be going up to the Bay Area for a Plug and Play, which is a big incubator out there in Sunnyvale, and hopefully, Jeff, if the gods are willing, maybe we'll stop by Vegas.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll make it on that trip, but there's certainly a tech scene that we want to come cover out here.
There's a lot. I mean, we encourage everyone to come on down. The community is super open. The companies are really open to having you come on down. You can always stay with anyone interested to coming down and check out the downtown project. Has an open invitation to come stay at CrowdHall for sure.
Okay, very cool, very cool. So how did that happen, man? You guys are in Salt Lake, you get the Brandery in Cincinnati, and now Vegas. How did that connection happen?
Yeah, like all things, I think in the startup space, you pursue every hot lead you can, but also you be mindful about those that kind of reach out to you. And as we were finishing up the Brandery, they contacted us from the Las Vegas Tech Fund, and we started negotiations with them. We were also looking at kind of angel groups because we were looking to lock down, at least 9 months to 12 months of runway, so we could really focus on the product.
Right.
Everything that for the first 9 months it was built was done by one CTO, who's our designer and developer, who's phenomenal.
No, he's great.
He needed a lot of support, and so we wanted some longer runway. So we had a couple offers between Utah and some other areas, but the Las Vegas Tech Fund, one, it was a great community. Two, they were really focused about how they wanted us to participate with the community.
Okay.
And three, it was a really great setup for us in terms of meeting our objectives, meeting our needs. And so we all felt like it was a really good fit.
I have to tell you, man, it is going to be hot this summer in Vegas, my friend.
Hot space, though, too.
It's going to be hot.
So, you guys are there really early on, right? You're going to be, like, the first people kind of part of this project, right? I think that it's going to be a hot space. I think people will be attracted to it as sort of a fresh shot at this. How many people are there going to be your peers around there, or is it still growing, really fresh?
So it is early, and there's a lot of exciting stuff in the pipeline, development-wise, real estate-wise. But there's already a lot happening, and I don't know the exact number on the amount of companies, but I think they're moving pretty fast. It's a lean, agile fund, and so our process was fairly smooth. They didn't BS us and drag it out. It was really, it was fun. We enjoyed it as a team. Very different than working with a lot of other funds.
That's very rare.
Okay.
And so very community-oriented, a lot of community vetting. And so it's very network-based. Kind of have that incubator feel to a degree, which we liked.
Okay.
So there's a lot going on down there. Great co-working space just opened up called Work in Progress, which is running full speed ahead.
Are
a
you
lot of
guys
good
all going to be
energy.
kind of living in the same area, or how are they doing that?
Yeah, so I mean, it's all up to the companies. So there's a lot of great opportunities. Most of the companies live right downtown,
Okay.
and so there's a couple big buildings that are kind of joint living, housing. We live in one that has a bunch of companies there. Our office is there. A couple of us rent from the office.
Okay.
There's pool parties, barbecues, networking, and then you can walk
cool.
to where all the action's happening, kind of with the downtown project.
Very
And so
cool.
it's definitely a different feel for
Very
Vegas.
cool. Very cool. Well, don't squander away all those that runway on a slot machine, please.
That's not me. That's my partner you have to worry about.
It's very cool, man. I'm excited. Actually, we talked to another founder that was just in Vegas, I think, trying to secure something out there. I know Zappos is really big over there. Have you actually met any of the key people at Zappos?
Yeah. So our team, yeah, has certainly met. They had us come out really early for a couple of events. We did a lot of events with Tech Cocktail, a couple receptions over at Tony Hsieh's house.
Okay.
And then we've met, yeah, with, I think they all play a fairly active role in the later stage selection of companies, and so it's really open community. Every Friday, I think it's every Friday, maybe it's once a month on Friday, they do kind of a downtown project stand-up.
Okay.
Where they have speakers come, and they've got, and a lot of them are there. A lot of people running the funds, running the different elements of the project are there, and it's really open, accessible community.
Very nice. What was your first impressions of Tony? Did you get a chance to talk to him at all?
So my partner, I didn't. I was not down there for that visit. My partner went down and had a great time. I mean, he's a big poker fan, and I think Tony is too, and so,
Okay.
so they had a really good time. And I did go to what I can speak for is if you ever visit at the downtown project, they love opening up his apartment, which is also kind of headquarters for the downtown project.
Okay.
So you go through there, and there's great books everywhere, but then you'll walk into the jungle room, which is a whole room that's head to toe covered in plants. And what takes place in that room, I do not know, but I think he's a creative guy who's got a really good vision for Vegas, which I think Vegas, out of a lot of cities, could use a lot more people like him.
Absolutely.
Tony's the man. I mean, I saw him give his speech on happiness years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, before before he started selling the book, I think, and just so many things about him are just like completely different than people's normal mode of business. And I think it sounds like his culture definitely emanates through all of these projects that everything around him hopefully sort of seeps of that pursuit of happiness, I guess, and ultimately it's different than everywhere else, right? It's hard to explain almost.
Yeah, it is, and they're doing a great job kind of translating that to the broader downtown community.
All right, so Jordan,
I can't wait to see that in person.
So let's step back a little bit with your product. All right, so I know you've been through several revisions. I'm looking at the latest, and it looks gorgeous, by the way. Whoever your designer is, they're doing a phenomenal job. My big question to you is, what are some of the key metrics that these new funds were looking at? Were they looking at how long the sales cycle was? What was the how many people were converting to actually the paid programs? What was some of the key wins for you to land this new round?
Yeah, well, it just depends, right? Whether it's at the incubator phase or kind of a seed stage phase, which is really consisted of angel investors, and the tech fund, which is investing in early stage companies as well, is you're looking at, great, what is the problem, what is your solution, right? What are your competitors looking like, and what is the market opportunity in the long run at this? And so what we notice, it's early stage companies, there's a lot less focus on, are you getting revenue? How many users do you have? What is page view per user, and how long are they spending on?
Right.
That side, while important, was not ultimately part of our conversations with either the Brandery or fundamentally with the Las Vegas Tech Fund or some of the other investors we met with. It's really about, what is your thinking on this? How big can it get? How fast can you get there?
Okay.
We don't care when you start monetizing it, but what is your revenue model looking like?
Okay.
how sound is that? What are you,
Okay.
can I challenge you on some of that?
Gotcha.
And I think that's a healthy way to go, because one lesson we learned early on is there are elements from the beginning that we have that we can charge for. And we did on one instance.
All right, let's hear it.
One instance, we very early on, we had a use case, a client very excited after we did USCID, wanted to partner with us to recreate that experience. But this time we said, well, we can charge for it. And so we did quite a bit. And while it was a good experience, it wasn't a great experience. And by our own admission, our product wasn't even optimized for the experience we were selling, but we were just thrilled at the idea of being able to sell something.
Right.
And as a result, we don't have they were a great client, they weren't a return client.
Okay.
And they weren't overly thrilled. And so at that point, it's not like we should have given it to them for free.
Right.
But you do want to really be mindful about when you're in your pilot phase and when you're not, and what do those partnerships look like to make sure it's win-win for everybody.
Okay.
And so that, for us, we really learned that crazy push for revenue.
Right.
You should demonstrate that, yes, people are willing to pay for a product you've created.
Right.
And then the next thing you should do is make sure they have a phenomenal experience, and then point to a number that shows how many of those people exist in the market.
Okay.
And so we've learned from that, and as a result, we make sure we have win-win situations for all of our early users, and then we will develop a couple products that we can then introduce to them that they're excited to buy, and that they're thrilled about. Because biggest lesson I've learned from every use case we've done is that as a startup, you have to overpromise to get the job. Because you're a startup and no one knows you, so you got to make sure this pitch is amazing. Right. But you also have to over-deliver at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all part of the superhero activities.
And anything short of that is where the other 90% of us ultimately end up.
So Jordan, I'm going to go back into the marketing bit here again. I know you're getting a lot of visibility through, of course, this amazing ABC show, and then, of course, with the incubators you're at and the connections with the political background. What other ways are people finding out about CrowdHall? Is it organic SEO? Is it other big partnerships?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. So we actually, we don't, to date, we haven't spent anything on marketing or advertising. And partly how we justify that is, one, we don't think we're at the phase for that yet. Okay. And two, we also, how our town halls work is we reach out to those who either represent or will be hosting a town hall, and they already have their audience established.
Right.
So we reach out to them, and then they actually invite their audience into this experience. So it's really efficient on our end. Yeah. But then what we do is we typically develop kind of a media strategy for each one of them.
Okay.
So we'll support them with press releases and everything. Right. But then we also go, you know what? We don't have that many press contacts. Right. So here's what you guys should send. And so senators will send out press releases.
Oh, beautiful.
Because for them, anybody doing this experience is a great story. Yeah. Because it communicates a couple things. It communicates, one, you want to be accessible to your audience. Two, you're taking a risk to be innovative. Yeah. And three, you're trying to be personally responsive. And so when you translate that to a lot of segments, there's an interesting story there. Okay. And so we find that a lot of that media outreach and stories is, that drives the traffic, that drives the
that makes absolute sense. All of these thought leaders or whatever in their own spaces have their own networks. If you can help them promote, obviously this has got a very strong viral loop already built in because people are inviting, and it's a CrowdHall type situation, one to many. It makes absolute sense. So as a non-technical founder, you've got a whole host of challenges. What advice would you give to other people out there that aren't, technically savvy or design savvy? What are some of the early things that you did that cemented your way of getting the CTO on board? I mean, a Rails guy that knows Ember is not going to come cheap.
No, and he lets us know that on a daily basis. No, yes. I'll tell you how. So both my partner and I, you got to play to your strengths for sure. And we were the first to say, look, we are a dime a dozen non-technical people with a neat idea. It's just like, oh, please, get lost, man.
Exactly.
And so the first thing we did is we measured out the obstacles that we had, and we, with no ignorance, we weren't naive about it. We said, we have essentially 15 obstacles if this is even to be taken seriously.
Right.
How do we start reducing them? And so you play to our strengths. So we, as a result, I will pitch all day long, and I will flash my shiny teeth and sell what I'm passionate about. And that was what we did for about 4 months. And we won some business competition money. We won jobs that we didn't even have products for. Yeah. And again, that's kind of, so at that stage, we overpromised in every occasion. Okay. But it's a little bit easier to recruit competent people when you've got some validation, some money, some people backing. Yeah. And so we recruited an early CTO who was awesome, but not set up for the startup experience, but really great guy. Okay. He bailed, left us with some early product. Okay. We then recruited Nick. Okay. And we found him on techcofounder.com.
Techcofounder.com. Okay. Very cool.
Call me crazy. We always feel like an idiot admitting that. It's like you admitting to your friends later on you found your life.
Yeah, it's funny. We've talked to other non-technical founders, and one guy happened to say he used to be a recruiter, so he posted the job and kept interviewing CTOs that way. Of course, meetup.com, way of getting out there in the community, that seems to work. But for you, you went to this co-founder website.
I mean, we tried everything. We a lot of referral-based stuff, a lot of networking, meetups we did a lot of. Wow. And yeah, it can be super discouraging. And so we had some early product and some clients. We had actually some incubator offers that had come in when we had our old CTO. And so we had a pretty comfortable transition for someone to step into. And Nick was just at such a great spot where he fit in phenomenally with our team. I mean, we love working with Nick. Have you ever seen Nick? He was an old heavy metal drummer in like a rock
awesome.
band.
Okay.
And he's just funny guy, mellow guy, but he was also a designer developer. We loved his work, and he fit in really well with us as a team. And he just happened to be looking for a chance. He'd worked on tons of startups before, but he wanted to work on one from the ground up. And so it was a right fit and the right time where we could minimize the risk for him.
I was going to say, you guys obviously had way more than just a good idea at that point. You'd proven it out and put the time and effort in to do that.
Right.
It was a long way.
And it also sounds like, Jeff, they had a little bit of an early product ready, maybe even a couple of clients.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe even a little bit of money to throw at this guy and be like, hey, listen, man, we're not asking you to do this for free. Here's a little bit of cash. Am I hearing this right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we had a little bit of cushion to help him transition over. We had an incubator offer for him to transition into, which had even more funding.
Okay.
And but then we all said, hey, at the end of the day, you're gonna, and we had some equity, obviously, too, as a company. For us, the biggest thing we did is we said, look, we know we need a very strong technical co-founder, and that means buy-in from the beginning, equity, ownership, a stake in our success.
Right.
And so we were it was mandatory from our end that
no, of course.
Hey,
you want this guy.
Take,
absolutely.
big chunk of equity.
That's really important. I've seen people expect someone to take ownership, but then not give them any equity, which is the actual literal ownership. So I think it really helps solidify what you expect from them as well. Just as a side note.
So are all three of you guys moving to Vegas here in a minute?
So everyone's down there now. Our whole team's down there now. We've got a lot of part-time and full-time dev hires, some of which we're trying to get down to Vegas.
Okay.
And we do have some business development people that will be making our first hires, actually out in Washington, D.C., New York a little bit.
Okay.
That'll stay based out of there.
Okay.
To kind of keep up some momentum in the political space.
How do you feel about growing this remotely? I mean, I know these guys are going to be in Washington. What's your sense of all that?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, it's a mixed bag. Obviously, when we're not all together, there's inefficiencies in the creative process, the design process. But from a business development perspective, what we found is cold calling, emailing is the worst, and it doesn't yield any results.
Okay.
And so we need our business development to live in a city where the hosts exist.
Okay.
To be able to say, hey, you know what, there's a digital agency that represents motion picture releases. I can swing on over there, give them a demo on an iPad, chat with them, and we start it that way. And that's the same way in the political offices. So the trade-off for them is, the business development doesn't necessarily need to be involved in the day-to-day of the product design and everything.
Right.
And it's much more efficient to have them in the city building those relationships.
So you brought up a very good point. So you're gonna have a biz dev guy in Washington. Are you gonna have a biz dev guy here in LA working the entertainment?
So yeah, actually, Vegas is so close.
Right.
It's a 2 to 3 hour drive, depending on the time of day and weekend you're going. And so we'll actually do kind of some focus trips out there. And then when, just like we did in the political space, when the clientele pipelines are understood on our end, established, the relationships and partnerships are built, then we do want to recruit and hire someone from within that ecosystem to just blow it up and to just go to town and own that space for sure, because there's so much work to be done. And that in that stage, so that we would look at that as, in the next 4 or 5 months, we'd love to be in a position to have someone step into our set of relationships we've established.
Okay. Very cool. I found you guys came on my radar vis-a-vis a TechCrunch article.
Yeah.
And I saw that. I'm like, whoa, this is really cool. And I reached out to you. How difficult is it getting press in TechCrunch? Are there any tips for founders?
Yeah, so tips that I've learned. So we've done, the tips for business development are the same for media relationships, in that no one, at least in my experience, and maybe I'm a poor press release writer, no one has ever picked up anything I've ever sent them. And and I think we send them great things. And so the best thing you can do is, again, reach out to fellow companies, peers, etc., that have maybe had an article written, that have press release, have press contacts. Reach out to them, say, hey, we've got this use case. I think we could create a great story. Can you introduce me to any? And then once you get an introduction to a specific writer, you pitch them an idea and say, hey, man, I'll essentially write this thing for you or help you.
Yeah.
Or I've got this story, because they need to be, you see TechCrunch, they're whipping out stuff every 10 seconds.
Exactly.
So they're looking for things, but they want things that have been peer reviewed or passed through, unless they're phenomenal, right? Unless it's just like, hey.
Big name,
Big name, big story. And that has actually been the most effective for us.
Wow, that's an excellent tip. So once again, reaching out to your fellow startup founders, if they know any reporters in TechCrunch, getting the intro, and then maybe even having the article written or the pitch or whatever, all that pre-done for them, get you a higher chance of getting in.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's the same networking. So how do you get a job? Ask a friend who knows a guy who works there who might get you an interview. It's really the same process. At the end of the day, you'll get the phone call for an interview to do a press story. You need to have something to talk about. And if you don't have a compelling story, then I'm sorry, but they're ultimately not going to pick it up just because a friend referred you. So you do need to rise to the occasion, have something legitimate to discuss.
Are you leveraging the TechCrunch article to try to parlay that into Read Write Web or some of the other tech press, The Verge, whatever?
Honestly, not so much. I mean, TechCrunch is a great article. We got a lot of interesting outreach. We're doing a lot of great town halls that have come on board because of that. I think.
Very cool.
But we also are filtering through like dozens of emails of crazy spam people trying to sell us junk, sell us recruiting things. And so it's a mixed bag of attention for sure. But our press release strategy, we're not trying to pump or toot any horn unless we have something compelling to discuss.
Very cool.
And so we like to time that along town halls and let the content created by our experience tell the story of our experience. And that's what we're a lot more interested in.
Oh, this is great. I love it.
People are going to inevitably find the town halls that they want to be a part of and engage with them and find other, your guys' site, the .com, and the other town halls that you have as well. Can you tell me more about the product early on, some of the iterations? You said you guys completely, pivoted the product or iterated it substantially. I'm looking at a page where you have Node.js Q&A with Isaac, which is great as a developer. I love that kind of thing. Him using this as a platform to reach out to the community. What kind of stuff did you guys, so I'm guessing retention is what you were looking for, traction among, are people engaging? Are they using it? Are they coming back? What were the things that you learned, and what were the things you changed?
Oh, this is a very good point. Yeah, the product design. Yeah, talk to us about that.
What'd you throw out, or what was the learning?
Yeah, a lot of it. So some of it, it's not that we threw out, but we we tucked it behind the curtains until further notice.
Okay.
So some of it is just really great features, insight notifications, more complex email digests, the ability to create your own town hall on the site without going through us. A lot of things like that.
Okay.
We actually pulled back a little bit,
Okay.
just to make sure that, you know what, as we're doing these, we're scaling, that we're keeping the product simple. And so to keep it watered down, very basic. Another big thing we did is, early on in our product, it was just, you learn, you think you're building something that, and then once you get it out there, you're like, oh, now that we see it in use, we want something a little bit different. Early on, we built a product that was really oriented around individuals. So once you signed in, it automatically created a town hall under every person.
Sure.
And what we said was, well, not everyone wants to host a town hall, and sometimes you want multiple people to host a town hall, and sometimes you want a brand to sponsor a town hall. So what does that look like, and this look like, and that look like? So we really backed away and developed a product that can be a lot more flexible. And so we just have always wanted to move away. We're not a network. We're not a social network. We are a venue with tools for a certain type of content creation process and interaction.
Okay.
And and so that's what we really focused on.
So you guys really refined and focused on what your value add and your purpose was. It sounds like getting rid of distractions and things that aren't a focus now, but you might bring back later.
Right, and a perfect example of this. So one thing I haven't talked about. So right now on the site, you'll see something called kind of crowdsourced Q&As.
Okay.
Between one host or multiple hosts that kind of have like a panel feel.
Okay.
We also, early on, we have a different type of town hall, which are kind of crowdsourced. They're town halls we call forums that actually don't have a host on them. So you open them up, and people just submit suggestions, ideas, photos, videos, and moderate up the content in order to source and prioritize the best content. But it doesn't have a host actually providing a response. So you could open one up to source. You guys could open one up, to source feedback or suggestions.
Oh wow! Okay.
And there's these learning spaces, but those weren't Q&As, and we actually had them working in the same layout and platform. But we said, you know what? It's too hard to educate people on these two types of uses. Let's just do Q&As. We can call them Q&As. We build it for Q&As. And right now we're working on the layout and the design for these kind of open-ended forums that can be used for things that don't require a response.
Okay.
So that required a lot of restraint on our end to kind of pull that back.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the early days of
you're looking at the problem.
Yeah, the early days of building a product, every day as a startup, you're always making big decisions. And you got to make sure that, you don't get too far off track. And it's interesting to hear that you went to go for something more simpler is the key here. And you always wanted these sort of hosted tools that anybody can embed. That was a big focus as well.
Yeah, and I mean we're, and it's not that we're not experimenting, because we don't know. Hey, maybe crowdsourced Q&As is not the actual big home run. Maybe it is these open-ended crowdsourced venues.
Okay.
So we're certainly going to sneak them out and test them and see which one's more sticky, which one more has frequent use cases, and we'll be the first to abandon what isn't interesting.
Right. Speaking of which, then how are you are you using Google Analytics quite a bit on everything in the back end, the Get Clicky, or what are you using?
Yeah, so we use a combination of Google Analytics and oh my gosh, it just totally Mixpanel. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we're using a combination of those to really track user flow, where we're losing them, where they're sticking. Basic demographics. People are signing in through Facebook, email, and Twitter, so we're able to pull and leverage a lot of that.
Speaking of which, what tools do you think are missing in the ecosystem that you would love to have that isn't available right now? That would help make your business grow, make the startup world easier.
At this stage, I mean, we feel like, I can't really speak to the development tools. I'll defer off to, our CTO on. But I feel like we found a lot of the complementary tools that are helping us achieve our objectives. From a business, our biggest challenge is, I'm assuming this is the case of most startups, is you might build a phenomenal product, but there needs to be a phenomenal business plan and distribution channel associated with that. And I think for startups, there are a lot of processes that help, build your product, get it out there, and it gets a little more ambiguous once you step into the real world of competing against enterprise-style teams that are, have crazy distribution channels and a lot of things like that. And so that's one of the bigger things, that we're learning on a daily basis.
Have you found in this circumstance, has LinkedIn been one of the key tools? What have you found seems to work? Is it just literally calling everybody on the phone? Or
no, I mean we don't use LinkedIn, as much for things. It's actually funny you hit us today. So we've experimented with a number of things, right? Like, what does the process look like to tweet at a famous person and say, hey, check this out, do you want to do it? What does the process look like through emailing, Facebooking? And the process is extremely inefficient.
Inefficient.
And so what we do is
if I may be wrong, but I might be smelling a startup here.
So I would say there are one of the, when we, for example, on our TechCrunch article, one of the biggest things we get spammed with is people saying, hey, we'll do your business development, cold calling, service, we get you hot leads. Okay. So I don't know. I think there's probably a whole world of people that do that.
Okay.
Doing it.
At the end of the day, because we had our own process, it was pretty efficient. And at the end of the day, all effective relationships, whether it's from investment, whether it's from business development, users of our product, has been by building off of existing relationships that we have. And so as a startup, I would say the only reason we've been able to succeed is because we've had phenomenal partners, advisors, who have felt confident in us that if they open up their LinkedIn network, for example, to say, hey, I know a brand manager at Procter & Gamble, on cover girl, I'm going to introduce you, and I feel completely confident in your team and your product if I do that. Those are the relationships that get us traction. And what we find is typically once we get a phone call to a high-profile user or their handlers in order to host a town hall, if it's come from a reference, they end up usually hosting one.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that works. That warm,
way
open.
More efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are there any celebrities on the on the horizon that we want to be keeping our eyes at here that you guys might be hosting?
We're always we always got a bunch of people that are almost gonna host.
Okay.
Right? And then we've got pipelines of people that are, and so in the political space, pay attention to. Like I mentioned, we're focusing on that. Keep paying attention to the town halls. We'll have continuous flow of kind of senators and congressmen, mayors, which for us is super exciting.
Gotcha.
We're just now starting to explore. Cool. What do the use case? Now that it's built, we can handle large traffic.
Right.
Who are our more, for us, maybe a little bit more interesting and fun town halls? We've got some professional athletes we're working with, some professional teams.
Okay.
In a couple different franchises like the MLS league, which we're excited about for soccer.
Very cool.
So but I never call it until they're on there answering questions.
Yeah.
Sure.
I got you. No, it makes sense.
Yeah. No, it's great. I mean, I think there's a whole breadth of areas you could go with it beyond just politics. What we've seen on Reddit's Ask Me Anything is surprising how many famous people will jump on and do it. I don't know if it's like this point that Reddit's so big they just demand it. They say like, we must have you on Reddit, and the fifth celebrity is like, oh, what is this thing? Okay, I'll do it. It's surprising, right? Who will actually get on there?
It is, and Reddit's always going to have something that we won't. For at least the short term, which is they have an audience, right? A very, very large, aggressive audience. And so that's why you get people like President Obama stepping into a process to do this, which is a very uncomfortable user experience. It's very unprofessional. It's I mean, there's so many disadvantages. But the advantage is that that's where the people are.
It's a big audience.
So right now, we don't promote the fact that we have the audience for you. We really say, hey, we give you the tools, invite your audience, but we've built our product in such a way where if a politician comes in, you participate by invitation in that town hall, but then you subscribe to the category of politics and government. we will then let you know when new town halls that might be interesting to you come up. And so then we can start to create a little bit of that platform space, so that when, you know, the example I always give is the day that, you know, a Chick-fil-A worker can open up a CrowdHall and say, I work at Chick-fil-A, ask me anything, and people on CrowdHall say, oh, interesting, I would actually be interested to do that, is the day we've really hit that platform effect.
Right. I have to tell you, Jordan.
I think you can do it.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Jeff. If you just keep at this, man, I could see it. I could see this happening, man. You know,
I do too. So
just keep that burn rate low, man, and don't gamble it away in those slot machines.
Yeah, I mean, I think the vision you guys have allows this to, like, you know, if I was to do a Reddit Ask Me Anything, I would rather do it here, white label it, or control the experience, retain the history, all of that kind of good stuff. I really like what you're doing. Another interesting use case I want to throw at Amul is it sounds like we could use the one-to-many, like, open-ended forum as almost a way to prove your startup idea. You know, so we talk about a lot of what the difficulty is, like refining the problem, focusing it, figuring out if there is a real problem, real world market fit.
I think
this might be a great way to explore some of those ideas.
I think it's a great idea, Jeff. Jeff and I have been talking about trying to find a way to create a forum or Q&A for startups and stuff. So yeah, absolutely.
It seems like the whole focus of the lean and all this stuff is to, you know, really try it and iterate and find out quickly with an experiment. It might be an interesting use case. We'll give it a shot.
Well, I have to tell you, Jordan, it's been awesome having you on, man. I'm very happy that we did this today. This is an exciting product, I have to tell you.
Great. Well, yeah, we're thrilled to stay involved. Keep us connected, and if anyone has any questions or anything, anyone can always reach out to us. Jordan@crowdhall.com.
Awesome. And if is there anything specifically that our audience can do to help you? Are you looking for anything?
Yeah, we're always looking for interesting people that want to have a crowdsourced conversation. So anyone that you think might love to step in and kind of see how the experience goes for them, reach out to us. Okay. For sure.
Like for instance, even if you want your congressman, you really have a topic you want to pick with them, you might push it at them, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Get your congress people using it. Sounds like a good idea to me.
Oh, this is great. Well, thanks again, Jordan. We're definitely going to be reaching out to you in a couple months, 2 or 3 months or so, or 6 months, and see how far along you guys are. And maybe if I can convince Jeff to go to Vegas, we'll come over there, man.
Great. Well, yeah, you got an open invitation.
Well, we're going to occupy the CrowdHall area right there. We're going to occupy that. All right, very cool. Really appreciate it. Thanks again, Jordan. You know, we're going to be posting this video, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Take care.
Great. Keep up the hard work, guys.
Yeah.